On October 7, 2016, heavily armed operatives from the Department of State Services, the DSS, surrounded the homes of senior Nigerian judges in the middle of the night. They broke down the doors, they brought search warrants and flashlights. What they found inside was not legal paperwork. They found bank vaults. Inside the Abuja home of Supreme Court Justice Sylvester Nwuta, agents recovered over 35 million naira. But they also found hundreds of thousands of United States dollars, British pounds, and euros. They found multiple diplomatic and standard passports. A sitting Supreme Court justice was operating a foreign exchange bureau out of his bedroom. But that is not where the money stops. When a judge has a pile of physical US dollars in his house, it means the financial system is working exactly as designed. The judges are supposed to guard the law. Instead, they were guarding the loot. I am a forensic investigator. Today, we are opening the files on the men who wear the black robes. We are tracking how stolen public funds are legally washed through the courtrooms to purchase absolute power. You are watching Historic Capital. This is the dossier on the judiciary cartel. If you want to steal a country, you cannot just control the treasury. You must control the tribunal. In Nigeria, corruption is a high-risk business. When a politician steals 1 billion naira, there is a chance the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, will catch him. To stay out of prison, the politician needs a judge. But you cannot simply wire 1 billion naira into a Supreme Court judge's bank account. That triggers a red flag at the central bank. You cannot write a check with the memo. Bribe for acquittal. This is where it changes. The cartel requires a middleman. They use the most respected men in the legal profession, the senior advocates of Nigeria, SNs. A senior advocate is the equivalent of a King's Counsel in the UK. They are the elite, and in the corruption supply chain, they act as the primary money launderers. Look at this carefully. The politician does not pay the judge. The politician hires the senior advocate. He pays the lawyer 500 million naira as a legal representation fee. The payment is invoiced, it is taxed, it is completely legal. Then the lawyer executes the second half of the transaction. He does not wire the money to the judge. He wires the money to a company owned by the judge's wife. Or he buys a luxury apartment in London and registers it in the name of the judge's child. Quietly. Sometimes the transfer is much simpler. In the case of prominent lawyer Joseph Nwobike, the EFCC presented evidence in court showing he had transferred money directly into the bank accounts of serving judges. The lawyer claimed the money was for books or medical assistance. The legal fee becomes a bribe, wrapped in a legitimate bank transfer. And this is where the justice system becomes a marketplace. Why would a politician pay $5 million to a judge? Because of the return on investment. In Nigeria, elections are rarely decided at the ballot box, they are decided in the election petition tribunals. When a state governor rigs an election, his opponent goes to court. The tribunal judges sit in a room and review the evidence. With one strike of the gavel, they decide who controlled the state for the next 4 years. Think about that. A state like Rivers or Delta has an annual budget of over 1 billion. If a politician pays a tribunal judge a 5 million bribe to secure a favorable ruling, he is spending a fraction of a percent to capture $1 billion treasury. It is the most profitable financial trade in the world. The judges know exactly what is at stake. They do not ask for millions of naira. They price their rulings in United States dollars. Look at the Supreme Court ruling for Imo State in 2020. The candidate, Hope Uzodinma, came in 4th place during the election. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, declared he lost. He took the case to the Supreme Court. The judges accepted results from over 300 polling units that had been previously rejected. When the new numbers were added, the total number of votes magically exceeded the total number of accredited voters. The math was a physical impossibility. But the contract reveals something else. The Supreme Court is the final authority. It does not matter if the math is wrong. If the men in the black robes declare you the winner, you are the winner. Hope Uzodinma became governor. The treasury changed hands. The ballot box is just a suggestion. The courtroom is the checkout counter, and this is where the real transfer begins. You might ask, where do the judges keep the dollars? They keep them in the exact same global banking system used by the politicians. Enter Justice Walter Onnoghen. In 2019, he was the Chief Justice of Nigeria. He was the most powerful judge in the country, presiding over the Supreme Court right before a highly contested presidential election. Suddenly, the executive branch moved against him. The Code of Conduct Bureau filed charges. They revealed that the Chief Justice of the Federation was operating undeclared foreign currency accounts at Standard Chartered Bank. The accounts contained hundreds of thousands of US dollars, British pounds, and euros. No one noticed, until the ruling party needed him gone. The government did not expose his accounts because they cared about justice. They exposed him because they needed leverage. The law was not used as a shield for the innocent. It was used as a sword by the cartel. Onnoghen was forced to resign, but look at the financial mechanics. How does a Nigerian civil servant, paid a strict government salary in Naira, amass a small fortune in hard US dollars sitting in an international bank? The dollars are the currency of the elite. The Nigerian justice system operates on a dual standard. The poor are jailed for stealing a loaf of bread in Naira. The elite are acquitted by judges who save their money in dollars. The money never stayed. It flowed from the politician's offshore account, through the lawyer's consulting firm, directly into the judge's foreign currency vault. But the ultimate victims never step inside a courtroom. When the judiciary cartel is active, the entire anti-corruption system is paralyzed. The EFCC can spend 5 years investigating a corrupt governor. They can gather bank statements, wire transfers, and confessions. They can build a bulletproof case. They bring the case to court. And then something changed. The defense lawyer files a perpetual injunction. A perpetual injunction is a court order that completely blocks the government from ever investigating or arresting a specific politician. It is a legal force field. One of the most famous examples was granted to Peter Odili, the former governor of Rivers State. In 2007, a federal high court judge issued an injunction restraining the EFCC from investigating, arresting, or prosecuting Odili over the billions of naira that disappeared during his 8-year tenure. The EFCC was legally blinded. The ruling stood for years. The missing money was protected not by armed guards, but by a piece of paper signed by a judge. This is the protection racket. The politicians write the laws, the judges sell the loopholes. If a foreign corporation bribes a Nigerian minister, they know that even if they are caught, they will never see the inside of a prison. They simply hire a senior advocate, approach the right judge, and buy an injunction. The risk of corruption drops to zero. You might think you have nothing to do with the Supreme Court. You might think the rulings in Abuja do not affect your life. This affects you. When a judge accepts a $5 million bribe to legitimize a rigged election, he is placing a criminal in charge of your state's treasury. When that criminal becomes governor, he loots the healthcare budget to recover the money he paid to the judge. Because the budget is looted, your local hospital has no malaria drugs. Because the hospital has no drugs, a child dies of a preventable fever. Nigeria owned the oil, but not the profit. The judge, sitting in his air-conditioned mansion in Abuja, is directly connected to the collapsing roof of a primary school in your village. They bought the judge, but you paid the sentence. When the courts are captured, democracy becomes an illusion. You cannot vote out a cartel if the tribunal judges simply rewrite the ballot. You stand in the sun for 8 hours to cast your vote. The cartel sits in a luxury hotel in London and decides the winner over a glass of wine. The justice system is an auction. We look at the men in the wigs and the black robes, and we assume they represent the law. But the law is just a commodity. It is bought, sold, and traded on the open market. The politician steals the public wealth. The senior advocate cleans the money. The judge signs the acquittal. It is a perfect closed loop of extraction. The midnight raids by the DSS in 2016 were a rare glimpse into the bedroom of the cartel. We saw the physical passports, we saw the stacks of US dollars, but nothing fundamentally changed. The judges who were removed were simply replaced by others who understood the rules of the game. Because as long as the political elite control the appointments, the promotions, and the budgets of the judiciary, the judges will always answer to the cartel. Justice in Nigeria is not blind, it is just very, very expensive. This dossier completes the cycle of political extraction. We have exposed the drug money, the offshore banks, the missing oil, and the judges who protect the thieves. But there is one final group that makes all of this possible. The people who tell you everything is fine. If you want us to open the files on the media cartel, how politicians bought the headlines, make sure you hit the subscribe button right now. Leave a comment below. Have you ever seen a corrupt politician actually go to prison and stay there? Or do they always find a judge to let them out? Let's read the records together. You are watching Historic Capital. The truth is in the transactions. Follow the money.